This video is about Neuvillette teams without Kazuha. There are mainly two reasons you might be interested in this type of outlook for him. First, you want to use him in another composition, since the teams that could make use of his monstrous capabilities are basically countless. Or second, for whatever reason, you skipped him not just once, but twice, and you don't even have him on your account. Whatever the case, this video will show you some alternatives. But first, let me reiterate just how good Kazuha is for Neuvillette, so you can make the comparisons easier to understand. Out of all the Anemo units, Kazuha has the best and most flexible buffing capabilities, the second best grouping capabilities after Venti, and he has the best damage output out of all of them, since he can unleash the highest quantity of swirls on a wide AoE range. I know what you're thinking. Right off the bat, this premise makes it sound like there is absolutely no chance for any other unit to compete with him in the flex slot, but if you really think that, this video will surprise you. Before I move on, let me remind you all that I put a lot of effort into my theory crafting, and you can show your support by subscribing, leaving a thumbs up, and enabling the channel bell notifications. Of course, when it's a matter of trying to replace Kazuha, the first thing that comes to mind is to look at other Anemo units to see how they can compete with him. Characters like Sucrose and Venti have situationally been able to stand up to him throughout the game history, but every time it was about buffing a hypercarry that didn't particularly benefit from elemental mastery, Kazuha was always the clear winner from a damage increase standpoint. But it's exactly this last aspect, elemental mastery, that makes Sucrose unexpectedly interesting for Neuvillette. In a past video I told you about how Neuvillette fits very well with Fischl, and that means he can run on taser teams. I went as far as saying that's the best team for him. While they might seem minimal at a glance, electrocharge procs are a factor on the team, and they can be amplified by Sucrose elemental mastery buffs. Other than that, Sucrose also has other things to offer. For example, her burst has hydro absorption priority over electro, and at Constellation 6 that will result in a hydro damage bonus buff for Neuvillette. Furthermore, her capability to hold the Hakushin ring, which buffs all the elements involved in an electro reaction, makes her able to increase both electro and hydro damage if she triggers electrocharge with a chain reaction after a sword. While I would rather give her Favonius Codex for consistency purposes, it's an interesting option for her. All of this results in Sucrose faring really well compared to Kazuha, especially at lower investment, where electrocharge takes constitute a higher portion of the team damage. Even when Neuvillette is holding his signature, the difference should not be particularly noticeable in single target scenarios. An impactful aspect is also that Sucrose is just faster than Kazuha animation wise, and that allows you to trim the rotation down by a couple seconds compared to the variant with the latter on the team. However, AoE situations should tell a different story, because Kazuha is just much better in those scenarios. Primarily, his grouping is much more versatile, and it has bigger range and pull efficiency, something that is really helpful for a character like Neuvillette, who has potential for great AoE damage if the opponents are close to each other. Secondarily, his damage will also scale up much better. Even in single target, Kazuha trances Sucrose when it comes down to personal damage contribution. And since multi-target scenarios will double or triple your sword counts, that just makes him scale much better, as he effectively becomes a one-man army in those situations. In general, if the team without Kazuha and the team with Kazuha have similar damage potentials from a mathematical standpoint, I still always expect the Kazuha variant to be about 10 seconds faster in terms of clear speed of the abyss, which is quite the effective difference in terms of DPS dealt. At a glance, a weaker alternative compared to Sucrose would be Venti. Venti is quite the nice fit for the team though, because of his abilities to make teammates restore energy if he absorbed their element with his elemental burst. Just like Sucrose, Venti will prioritize Hydro over Electro in the absorption process, so he can technically be a very good battery for Neuvillette. However, this battery is not always needed, as Neuvillette's energy requirements were already close to zero on other teams with signature prototype Amber, but Venti does help teams where you use weapons like Sacrificial Jade quite a lot. Since Jade is the second best option for Neuvillette, Venti competing evenly with Sucrose and Kazuha for this scenario is quite relevant. Also, to an even larger extent than Kazuha, Venti can completely dominate floors where his grouping capabilities can have an impact. It is seriously impressive how Venti can still single-handedly beat these floors by using his elemental burst. It is so ridiculous that you can literally let him flex on camera while the opponents are getting mauled behind him and everything will still be fine. On the flip side, his burst can feel rather useless against opponents that can be pulled closer by it, like bosses, so its value really tanks in those situations. Overall, still a fine option all things considered. Last but not least, the one that's probably the most interesting alternative of this video, Jean. Jean is interesting because she's a healer, so she can technically cover the defensive role on the team instead of Zhongli. It won't be quite the same, of course, because she obviously doesn't offer the same interruption resistance perks as he does, but she does theoretically open up for more offensive options in his role, like Albedo.
What?
However, this theoretical composition is a bit weaker than the others I've shown in terms of damage, and completely lacks significant grouping tools since Jean's elemental skill is just lackluster in that regard. It's fine as an option if you really want to go weird with it and make a Neuvillette team with possibly the least contested 5-star off-field units in the game, but for the rest, it won't be able to compete with other versions I've shown in this video. As a whole, I wouldn't say Neuvillette hugely depends on Kazuha, but the latter is surely the best and most consistent option for him. Sucrose can put up a fight in single target scenarios, and Venti can even surpass him in floors where his burst actually works as intended. But if I had to choose one, Kazuha is the clear pick for him. And I'm done for today. Since I already covered Neuvillette extensively so far, the next video will be on Grizzly teams, so if you enjoyed this, stay tuned for more.